This is one of the most important videos, most important modules of this course. The basic system for how to organize all of your notes and really all of your life. So all the different areas and the different documents and things that evolve. Where do you store it? How do you store it? How do you organize it all? So the way this works is everything is numbered, and you're basically you're using those numbers so that everything that you have is in a permanent ordering. And that's very important because anytime an ordering or things are shifted around, it becomes hard to remember where things are. So if you imagine like a cupboard or stuff in your fridge, the way it's always getting moved around, there's certain areas where things are always getting moved around. There's other areas where everything is always in the same place. So maybe the place where you keep your plates or your bowls are all in one area, and those bowls and those plates always go in the exact same place. Or maybe your silverware, it's sorted into knives and forks and spoons, and then maybe other stuff like a bottle opener or like a steak knife, and even for your knives, like you may have a chef's knife and then a paring knife and different types of knives that are always kept in the same place. When they're always kept in the same place in different spots, then it's very easy to find them because they're always in the same order. The mistake people make with their information is it's usually just ordered by the alphabet in whatever folder it's in. So that becomes a real problem because anytime you add something new, it jumbles up the order of everything that's already been there. And because you're looking at it in a visual way, your brain has become used to things being organized in a certain way. And then when something new is added and something else is pushed down, then your brain gets a little bit of uncomfortable. It's no longer completely used to and accustomed to that sort of organization. So when you just put numbers in front of everything, what it does is it keeps the ordering permanent. It kind of cements it. It's like a foundation. And so you can trust it, you can invest in it, and you know that everything is always going to be in the exact same place, even months, years, decades later. So that's really powerful because what happens when you memorize these frameworks is that starts to go into your head in how you organize ideas and the framework of how you think about things in your head. Things become a lot more clear, and because there's a solid foundation that's never going to change, you can wire things together very strong. You can wire them together where even if you add something, it's not going to change the basic underlying wiring. Those things are always going to stay the same. So if you change something, you're not going to lose all the work you did beforehand. So it's like if you were just started adding new letters to the alphabet, it would confuse a lot of things, and things that you understood previously, it would kind of shake things up. So the other thing here is fewest levels of hierarchy possible. And the reason why that is because your brain isn't great at managing a ton of different levels of hierarchy. So whenever you can, avoid hierarchy. And there's a balance between overwhelming one level, because you could just have everything at one level, meaning just a single list, like a single set of folders, and then whatever files are in there is what's in there. If you can, try to stick to about 3 levels of hierarchy. Try not to get any deeper than that if you can. So this is also a factor when you're storing files with long folder names or long file names, especially books, PDFs, stuff like that. You can get into trouble when you just have file names that are too long, and that becomes a big issue. So like when you're backing things up, because you can't it doesn't want to copy things over. So there's issues like that crop up, but it's mostly for just organizing your brain, is have as few levels of hierarchy as possible, because our brains just aren't great at managing a bunch of different levels of hierarchy in a bunch of different areas, especially all at once. So later, after all of this stuff has been built into your brain, it's really solid and it's completely unconscious, then if you want to add more hierarchy, fine. But at the beginning of stages, try to go for as few levels, 2 or 3, and try to eliminate unnecessary hierarchy. I see a lot of people just using way too much hierarchy, and you can very easily get lost in it, especially when it's new information. So try to keep the levels of hierarchy to 2 or 3 if possible, or fewer. So this is the main structure. 0 up top is meta. If you don't want to use a 0 for whatever reason, then you can just shift it to a 5 or a 6. But meta, I like to put it at the top because it's how are you organizing the whole system? How does the system work? Have you documented how it works? Because you're going to forget over time how you built the system and how it all works. So you have to document that every time if it's an important system and it would be confusing or take any period of time to relearn it. So just write it down so that you're teaching yourself instead of having to figure it out by trial and error each time you forget. Business and career. So whatever your core business is or your core career is, that's where this stuff goes. If you have multiple businesses or you've had different jobs and you want to store all of that stuff, then you can keep all of those things, and then just inside the career folder you can list those different roles you've had. Another thing you can do, and this is what I do for my different businesses, is that I just add on. So after 4, I'll have some of my other business for 5, for 6, for 7, and then anything that's really small time stuff that's maybe just a one-time thing, or it's just something that's from, many years ago. I just have a folder called other miscellaneous business or jobs or stuff like that. Put it all in there. But that's your first category. Second category is personal. There's going to be separate slides on all this stuff. So this is just the main ideas that you've got these categories of, and personal. A lot of it is, another way to think about it is that's your relationship with yourself. That's you managing just different areas of your personal life. So the third category is relationships with other people, and then 4 is health, your body, your diet, other things that you do. So that's the basic structure. Everything should be able to fit into one of those categories. If you're thinking about something, you're like, well, it can't fit anywhere, it's probably going to go into personal or maybe meta. So, but otherwise, this is a very simple system, and it can handle anything that you throw at it. So meta is for strengthening your systems. There's always going to be systems that need to be strengthened, the things that you can improve. Anytime there's a process that you're going through repeatedly, that's something that you can improve on, and oftentimes get a huge improvement on it. So just the system that you're learning right now is going to be a huge improvement on what you probably have in terms of how you're organizing things right now. So unorganized ideas that need to be organized, ways that you have of keeping notes or different information sources, and how do you handle that? How do you get it into your system, and then how does it become part of your learning process and your workflow? That's one of your systems. You're going to have systems in each area of your life. You're going to have habits for each area of your life, for your relationships, for your business, for your health, for your own personal stuff. Like maybe you check in on your finances once a week or once a month, or when you do your taxes, and all these different habits and routines that you have, checking in with people, different relationships that you have, and maybe when you check in on them, or when you send a birthday card or a Christmas or whatever holiday, different things like that. So those are all systems, those are all processes. And you may be thinking, well, do I really need a process or a system for that? And the reason why I think this way, and I encourage you to think this way, is the more that I've seen and that I've modeled people that are really successful, that have tons of relationships, that are making a lot of money in their career or in their business, have a great body, are really happy with each area of their life, or have really excelled in one area, is they have systems in this area. They have processes in this area. So somebody who has a ton of friends, who has a ton of business connections and knows a lot of people, they're bound to have a system. Somebody who's sending out thousands of Christmas or holiday cards every year and is making sure they get everybody's birthday, that person has a system for doing that. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do it, or they just go crazy doing it. So even though you don't have a system for doing something, and maybe nobody in your life has a system for doing it, doesn't mean there aren't a lot of people out there, especially successful people, that do have systems. So it's really important to start thinking that way if you haven't already. And documenting these things also, because when it's time to send out those New Year's or Christmas or whatever cards next year, then you're going to forget how you did it last year. So you need to have a documentation so you remember how you do that. And that's one of the big differences I see in somebody who's really a professional, somebody who's matured in their business or in their career, for somebody who hasn't, is the people that haven't matured yet are the people that don't have systems, don't have routines, and everything's the first time, or it's trial and error, or it's just off the cuff kind of thing. So it's really important to get into this stuff. Have a separate section just for systems because they're so important. This is the next section. So this is more focused on if you're operating a business, but you can also adapt this to whatever roles you have in your career or in your job. So for a business, the three main levels are really any organization. So even if it's a nonprofit, even if it's just a club that you run or something else, is innovation, marketing, and operations. So innovation is, what are you creating? If there's a problem out there, how are you solving it? How are you coming up with a solution for that? That's basically what a business is. That's basically what a job is you're a professional problem solver. You're just a problem solver, and you solve problems in a certain type of way with certain tools, certain resources, certain strategies, and that's what it is. Marketing is about communication. So it's about, there's people with every sort of problem imaginable in the world. How do you tell them that there's a solution, and then your solution works, how much it costs, and then is it better than the other solutions that are out there? So that's very important to communicate to people that have problems that you can solve their problem, because otherwise they're just sitting in their house wondering, I wish there was something out there that could solve this problem. So marketing is also very important. That's your communication. Third level is operations. So operations is what helps support these other two main roles, which is creating the solution to the problem, or creating new solutions, or even in some industries, creating new problems. So that's a interesting area of one example would be pharmaceuticals, where if you can invent a new disease, or you can invent a new problem, or invent a new syndrome, or identify something that maybe a culture has ignored, then that's a new thing. Or if you can, another thing we're seeing in our culture right now in the US is marketing more beauty products towards men. So marketing more like shaving and skin creams and stuff that used to be mostly marketed towards women. Now it's becoming more mainstream for men to be thinking about this stuff, because that's the only way to create growth in a business where you've really fulfilled all the demand is what's out there. The only way to grow that business is to create new demand. So another kind of way of innovation is, it's not always looking for just solutions to existing problems, but maybe there's other problems that are out there that other people don't realize. That's kind of what accelerated learning is recognizing we've got this one way of learning of how we learn in school, and nobody is really optimized on that. So I recognized that problem, and that was part of the innovation. So then marketing is about communicating that solution, and then operations is about supporting that. So that's the financials, that's the distribution, that's all the other things that aren't directly involved with communicating with people that could be customers who already are customers. That's also everything internal that you're doing with the employees, and that's another area of marketing also. So creating a culture, marketing to the people in your own organization is very important. If you don't do that, then you don't really have a culture.